All right, so trying to figure out if the Demigod Files is worth your time. We get it. Ton of Percy Jackson books out there. Today, we'll help you decide if this one's shortcut to figuring out if this companion book is just for superfans, or if casual readers can enjoy it too.
Yeah, we'll dive into Rick Riordan's writing style, see if the stories actually add anything new to the Percy Jackson universe, and compare it to some other books in the series so you can make the best decision for your reading list.
Love it. First things first, this is a companion book to the original Percy Jackson and the Olympians series. So we're talking short stories, character interviews, and those fun little extras that Riordan throws in for his fans. But is it all just fluff?
Not quite. The real gems here are the three original short stories. They feature Percy Jackson and take place between books 4 and 5 of the main series, which is a pretty pivotal point in the overarching plot.
Okay, that's kind of cool. But let's be honest. There are a lot of Percy Jackson books already. Do these stories really offer something new, or is it just more the same?
They actually offer some pretty significant character development and backstory that you won't find in the main series. For example, Percy Jackson and the Bronze Dragon really fleshes out the character of Selina Beauregard. Remember her? She's kind of a mystery in the main series. But this story gives us a better understanding of her motivations and helps explain some of her actions later on.
Interesting. I always thought Selina was a fascinating character. So getting more of her story is definitely a plus. But I have to ask, are these stories actually any good? Sometimes companion books can feel like filler, like the author just threw something together to appease the fans.
Trust me, Riordan doesn't phone it in. He brings the same wit and action-packed storytelling that made the original series so popular. In fact, one reviewer specifically highlighted Riordan's ability to balance humor and danger, quoting lines like, "A girl starts trying to kill you, she's into you, and one dragon can ruin your whole day."
Okay, those are pretty classic Riordan lines. Cheesy, but kind of hilarious. So even though it's a companion book, it sounds like he's still delivering the same humor and action that fans love.
Yeah. Exactly. And don't forget, these stories aren't just random side quests. They actually fit into the larger Percy Jackson timeline and can impact future events in the series. Percy Jackson and the Sword of Hades is a great example. It might seem like a standalone adventure, but it introduces the Doors of Death, a concept that becomes hugely important in the Heroes of Olympus series.
Hold on. The Doors of Death first appear in the Demigod Files. I had no idea. That completely changes how I view that story. It's not just a fun little side adventure. It's actually laying the groundwork for some major plot points later on.
That's what makes this companion book so interesting. These stories might seem small, but they can have a huge impact on the Percy Jackson universe. It makes you wonder what other hidden connections we might be missing.
Okay, I'm starting to see why this book might be more than just a simple companion piece.
Yeah.
But what about the other stuff, like the character interviews and the guide to Greek gods? Are those worth checking out, or are they just filler?
It's a mixed bag. Some readers, especially older ones, found them a bit childish or unnecessary, but others appreciated the extra layer of humor and insight they provided.
I get it. It's like the bonus features on a DVD. Sometimes they're interesting, sometimes they're skippable.
Exactly. Think of them as bonus content. Nice to have, but not essential. But let's zoom out a bit. We've talked about what's in the Demigod Files, but you're trying to figure out if it's right for you. So let's break it down.
Okay, so let's say I'm a huge Percy Jackson fan. I've read all the books, I've seen the movies, I've got the Camp Half-Blood t-shirt. Do I need this book in my life?
If you're a diehard fan, the Demigod Files is a no-brainer. It's like getting an extra helping of your favorite dessert. You get more of the characters you love, more of Riordan's signature humor, and most importantly, those stories actually fill in some gaps and enrich the world you're already invested in.
Sold. But what about someone like me? I've read a few of the Percy Jackson books. I enjoyed them. But I'm not, obsessed. Should I bother with this one?
If you're a more casual reader, I'd actually recommend holding off on the Demigod Files for now. You might not get the full impact of the stories without a solid understanding of the characters and their relationships. Imagine watching the deleted scenes of a movie before you've even seen the film itself. It just doesn't have the same impact.
I see your point. It's like trying to appreciate a sequel without watching the original movie first. You might miss some key references or emotional beats.
Exactly. You'll enjoy it much more if you have that foundation of knowledge from the main series.
Okay, so finish the main series first, then dive into the companion books. Makes sense. But what if I'm looking for more Percy Jackson content, but I'm not sure about the Demigod Files? Are there other options I could explore?
Definitely. If you want to stick with companion books, there's the Demigod Diaries. which focuses on the Heroes of Olympus series. That's the sequel series to Percy Jackson. The Demigod Diaries might be more accessible for casual readers because the stories aren't as tightly tied to the events of a specific book.
So different characters, different stories, but still the same Riordan style.
Exactly. But think of it like a spin-off series. You get the same world and the same type of humor, but with a fresh perspective.
That's a great option. And of course, there's always the option of revisiting the main Percy Jackson series or diving into the Heroes of Olympus if I haven't already.
Absolutely. There's a whole universe of demigod adventures out there waiting to be explored.
Okay, so it sounds like there's no shortage of Riordan material to keep me busy. But circling back to the Demigod Files, what's a final verdict? Is it a must-read or a pass?
Here's the bottom line. If you're a dedicated Percy Jackson fan, then the Demigod Files is definitely worth checking out. The original stories offer valuable insights and classic Riordan entertainment. However, for casual readers or those new to the series, I recommend starting with the main novels before venturing into the companion books.
Solid advice. It sounds like those stories add a lot more depth to the Percy Jackson world than I initially thought. It's not just about getting more Percy, it's about understanding the characters and the universe on a deeper level.
Precisely. And as we discussed, some of those seemingly small side stories can actually have a big impact on the larger Percy Jackson universe. Remember Percy Jackson and the Sword of Hades? That story introduces the Doors of Death, which become a major plot point in the Heroes of Olympus, the House of Hades. It's like Riordan was planting seeds in these companion books that would blossom later on in the series.
That's a fascinating point. It makes you realize that companion books aren't always just bonus content. Sometimes they hold essential pieces of the puzzle. It makes me want to go back and reread those stories with this new perspective in mind.
I think that's a great idea. You might be surprised at what you discover when you revisit these stories with a deeper understanding of the Percy Jackson universe.
Okay, so I think we've given our listeners a lot to think about, but ultimately it sounds like the decision of whether or not to read the Demigod Files comes down to two key factors: your level of fandom and what you're looking for in a companion book.
Absolutely. If you're looking for a deeper dive into the characters and plot points you already love, then the Demigod Files will deliver. But if you're a more casual fan or you prefer standalone stories, you might want to explore other options within the Riordan universe.
Makes sense. So are we ready to wrap up our deep dive into the Demigod Files?
I think so. Any last thoughts?
I think so too. We hope this deep dive has given you all the information you need to decide if the Demigod Files deserves a spot on your reading list.
Yeah, and if you're still on the fence, I encourage you to explore the source material we've drawn on today.
Exactly. We've just scratched the surface here, but there's a whole world of Percy Jackson analysis and debate waiting to be explored.
And who knows, maybe you'll discover connections and insights that we missed. That's the beauty of deep dives like this. They're just the starting point for your own literary adventures.
Well said. And with that, we'll bid you farewell, fellow demigods. Happy reading, and we'll catch you on our next deep dive.